Okay, I'm live. Good morning, witches. It's March 10th. It's 8 a.m. and we did change our clocks for those of you who are in the US who observe daylight savings times. We get to lose an hour. Yay! Okay. So this morning we're going to talk about dealing with, oh, I forgot. I'm on YouTube, so I need to say my name is Dawn, and I'm from Aurora, Dawn. That is the name of my business. So, but we're going to talk about wounded inner child and working with that wounded inner child to heal her or him. And this is part of a video series that I've been doing about what I'm doing to work on my shadow and to heal. So, and I'm hoping that me sharing what I'm doing will help you, give you some ideas and inspiration to work on yourself and heal yourself. All right. So, one other thing I want to mention is that I still have this cough. This is the 5th week. It's almost gone. It is almost gone. So if I have to cough, I'm going to try and go off camera because you don't need to see that. Okay, so it's kind of equivalent to coughing in your face, and nobody likes that. Okay, so let's talk about this wounded inner child. The first time I ever heard of such a thing was PBS had a special on. This guy named John Bradshaw had written a book. I got it pulled up so I could tell you. It's Homecoming. It talks about reclaiming and championing your inner child. And this was the first time I had ever been exposed to the wounded inner child. I didn't know anything about it. It's many, many years ago. It was actually right before I started getting into witchcraft. And so I feel like it was a stepping stone to getting into witchcraft and really letting go. I had just let go of Christianity. I had been with foster parents who were radical, fundamentalists, evangelical Christians, and I was very uncomfortable with a lot of things in Christianity. And finally, one day I said, you know what? I can't do this. I was in my 20s. I can't follow this God who's going to send people to hell just because they didn't believe a certain way. So anyway, I got into this, and he did a guided meditation that was absolutely blew my mind. And it was the next thing I did was I started having a lot of experiences in my meditation after his guided meditation through the PBS special. And my background in meditation, I started when I was 6 years old. I went to a private school that taught us during recess, morning recess, we were taught yoga and meditation. And that was our morning recess, is practicing those things. And I was taught to focus on one thing and eventually get to a place where you blank out your mind. So I never really had experiences using that kind of, it was good for me. It helped me stay calm and feel good, and stress relief and all of that, and helped strengthen my concentration so I could focus in school. So it was great. It was awesome. And I kept practicing, even though my mother put me in a public school for, I spent 2 years there in that private school. Then I started going to a public school, and I still continued. She brought me to ashram, so I continued to learn and practice. But when I became a Christian, I was told that meditation opens the door to demons, demon possession. So during my stay with my foster parents, I stopped meditating. But what I want to get back to is I never had those experiences that I had after this guided meditation with John Bradshaw. And it just was a definite stepping stone towards becoming more aware, more awake, more conscious of who I am and what I'm doing here on this planet. So it has been very, very helpful to continue that meditation practice. Okay, so wounded inner child, I was introduced to it by John Bradshaw. He's very well educated, but never got his doctorate. So he's not a PhD, he died a few years ago. But he was not a doctor per se, but he was a counselor for many years. He has a good education in psychology and philosophy and some other theology stuff, which he kind of pulled out of the religious aspect of his education because he grew up with an alcoholic father who abandoned him, and he knew that pain, and he wanted to help other people to get through that pain. So I've written in my journal my experience with my wounded inner child, or children, should I say, because there's several of them. And here's what happens. This is my understanding. I'm not trained in shamanism. Let's see. But I know Jennifer Bishop, who's in our group, she has been trained, so maybe she can share a little something, or any of you that have been trained, or if you've read a lot of books on it, on shamanism, maybe you can chime in and give some a little more explanation as to how this works. This is how I do it. I don't do the drumming. I don't do the typical shamanic traveling or journeying. For me, okay, let me back up. So when I did this, followed John Bradshaw and did the guided meditation when he was on PBS, I felt that was so powerful and worked so well for me. That's kind of what I do. And it's just getting into a meditative state. And then my intention is to go to my subconscious mind and call to me my wounded inner child that I need to deal with and work with and heal. So that's exactly what I did. So that is my process. Just relax the body. And I'm lying down on the sofa. I don't do this in bed because bed is where I sleep. So if I did it in bed, I would fall asleep, and that doesn't work. That doesn't help. Okay. So I need to be conscious. So I'm on the sofa and I'm lying down because when I get really relaxed, I kind of fall over, and I want to get as deep as I can without, nodding off and then jerking myself back so I don't fall over and hit the floor. Some people teach that you need to train your body to stay upright, and it will work after, you practice for a certain length of time. You can sit and go into a deep meditative state and stay upright. I'm not there. I haven't been practicing that. I just lie down because it's easier. But I might start doing that. I'm trying to better myself. So that's one of the things on my list that I'm going to look into. If it's important enough to me, I will incorporate it into some sort of daily practice, or at least several times a week, so I can get better at it and see if it's beneficial, if it works for me. Okay. So the first one, journey, I guess you could call it, is it's a type of shamanic journey. I just relaxed my body, went into a deep meditative state, and I felt like it was the opening to my subconscious mind. I was in a very lit up area, which I feel is my conscious mind area. And I was looking into a very dark, cave. It's a big, huge opening, and it was all very dark. And I called to my wounded inner child, and the first thing I saw was a monster. And this a lot of times will happen. Don't be afraid. You cannot be afraid, because if you're afraid, then it's going to get in the way. Your fear is going to get in the way, and you're not going to have a good experience. So this is when you see something. The first time I did this was with my teacher for the self-mastery spiritual life coach teacher. He kind of led me through it, and the first thing, she appeared as more of a demon. This is her way. She's very fearful, so this is her way of trying to scare me off in order to stay safe. She doesn't want to deal with this, and so because she doesn't know what I'm going to do, and she broke off from me, slivered off from me, at a very young age because she was afraid something was happening traumatic and painful and scary. So she slivered off and has been hiding in my subconscious mind, afraid of rejoining with me because the same traumatic experience could happen again. And she's safer if she just stays in my subconscious mind. So she projected this big monster that looks like a Tyrannosaurus Rex, but it was kind of comical because it looked like a child drew it and then it became animated. So I knew that it wasn't anything that I need to be afraid of. So I just spoke words of compassion and love. I was sending her love and compassion, and that I was here to heal and to heal the relationship so that she would feel safe again. And the monster disappeared and she walked forward into the light, still in the subconscious side, and I was on the conscious side. So I was in the lit up area, but the light shining into the subconscious area lit her up. And she was dressed in this smock that was kind of dingy and not very colorful at all. It was all gray, different shades of gray. And I just spoke words of love and compassion to her because I wanted her to feel comfortable and feel safe. And I told her things like, I'm so glad you were born, little Dawn. I'm glad you are here, and I'm going to keep you safe. I will never abandon you. I will always be here for you to support you and make sure no one hurts you. And she, at first, the expression on her face was very fearful, shy, withdrawn. And then that changed and she just reached out and gave me a hug. Wonderful. So I'm hugging her and I let her sit in my lap and I'm just communicating this nurturing, emotionally nurturing her, which is something we all need to learn how to do for ourselves, as well as when we're reaching out to the wounded inner child within us that we're working with. So, and I'm just talking to her, nurturing her emotional needs. And I told her that, actually back up. She told me that what she wanted from me is to play, to do more things that are fun. So, okay, I agreed that I would make an effort to do more things that are fun and not get so stressed out about things that I have to do and get caught up in, being an adult, that can be a drag sometimes. So do fun things to relieve the stress and just enjoy life. And so I agreed to that. And I told her there is a playground over on the unconscious or subconscious side where there are a lot of other children she could play with and she could have fun. So she ran off and went to the playground, and that journey was over. Okay. So that one was over and that was great. It was just wonderful. It felt good. It warmed my heart to actually make that connection. The next one, I journeyed again, and there was no monster. There was just this young girl, older than the other one, which is very interesting. Okay, so I'm asking myself, all right, what happened? And I asked her, what happened to the other little girl? And she said that she was inside of me. So she had come back to me. And that's called soul retrieval. It's a type of soul retrieval. I know you can work with a shaman who will go into a meditative state and find your fragment of your soul and return it to you. I've never experienced that. My experience with other people doing things for me like that doesn't work very well. That's for me though. So other people, it might work great for you or, somebody else, but it does not work for me. This is something that I have to do this work. And it's just, I think it's more of the way my brain works, my mind works, my subconscious programming, that if I don't do it myself, then it's not real, it doesn't work. Um, it's stubborn that way. So anyway, I'm working with this older child, and I realized something. The wounded child, actually after the meditation, so we got to back up a little bit. After that meditation, I realized the age of that little girl that showed up was about 6 years old. And I remember that my mother, my aunt and uncle left me home alone for the first time. I was 6 years old. I'd never been left home alone before. My mother said that I must not, do not answer the phone. Do not answer the door, because if anyone finds out that I'm home alone, they can call the police and the police will take me away from my mother. It scared the baby Jesus out of me. It was raining outside. I had my umbrella open and I was sitting by the front door because I just knew somebody was going to call the cops and they were going to take me away. Somebody was going to figure it out. Somebody was going to find out. And I was waiting for the police to come and take me away. I was scared out of my mind. I was just 6 years old. Okay. So I feel that this wounded inner child, the first one that I worked with in that meditation, she slivered off because of that traumatic experience. So me saying, I'm so glad you were born and I'm here for you. I will never leave you. I will always be here for you to protect you and take care of you. I have a job. I have a car. If something bad happens, I can get in the car and drive away. I can call the cops if we need to protect us, so on and so forth. That made her feel safe because she slivered off because she was abandoned. Okay. So this next one showed up at about 8 years old, and again she was in a smock, and I did the emotional nurturing just like I did with the other one, and it worked really well. No monster, no demons, no scary nothing. She just showed up. She felt comfortable to show up and communicate with me, and she sat in my lap and we talked, and I found out from her that she wanted me to be, this is funny, she wanted me to be more feminine and to dress a little nicer and maybe wear makeup and stuff like that. I hate, absolutely hate spending that time in the morning doing my hair and putting on makeup. That, that's just in dresses and all that. I just never got into that. I was always a tomboy. This really, really talented psychic and healer told me once that, and I had never knew this. I never talked about this with anybody, and I wasn't even aware of it until she brought it up. She said, when you were a little girl, you had a lot of male energy that you were expressing because your father wasn't there and you wanted to bring balance to your relationship with your mother, because my mother is very feminine, and they divorced when I was 2, so it was just me and my mom. And she said that I felt that I needed to protect her. So I was always a tomboy. I loved to play with cars, play in the dirt, play with other kids. I hated playing house, hated baby dolls. I played with dolls, but grown-up dolls. Like Raggedy Ann was not a baby. She was my friend. So, and Barbie dolls were grown-up dolls. So I played with those, which is kind of girly. But I was more interested in playing sports and being out in the dirt and, the boy stuff. And so that was her request for me to help her feel more comfortable with me, to balance the male and female energy in my life. So I told her that I would do that I would at least wear some lip color and earrings to work, because normally I don't wear any jewelry because it can be a hassle. I wear this baseball cap that's a bump cap. It's got plastic over the top, so if you bump into anything, it helps to protect your head. So I wear that all day long, and it looks kind of tomboyish, and then you got earrings on. It kind of looks weird, so I never bothered with it. Besides, it takes time, and I'm not into that. So I'm making an effort to be more feminine, to balance that out. And Skip, it appreciates when I get all, dressed up and stuff when we go out. He appreciates, he really likes it. So I can do it for him too. And he'll appreciate it. So, and she was dressed in a smock that was kind of dingy looking. And I asked her, I said, okay, I'll do this. Will you put on a nice dress instead of the dirty smock? And she did. She made the smock go away and a dress appear with little flowers on it. It was very pretty. And I told her that she could go off into the playground and play with other kids, but she didn't want to. She wanted to be with me. So agreeing to be more feminine, it seemed to be enough for her to come back to me. So that was very cool. And the thing about the age of this child was about the age that I was when I was going through a period of time. I was a latchkey kid. So my mother would wake me up in the morning, but I got myself dressed. I made breakfast, which was just a bowl of granola and some milk. And I made a peanut butter and honey sandwich, and I walked to school. And during this time, my mother worked second shift so she could make a little extra money, and it was more in alignment with her sleep schedule anyway. She's a night owl. She liked to stay up late. So it worked out really well for her, but I never saw her. And then she had a boyfriend. And so on the weekends, she was, with him, and she would never take me with them because she wanted to keep that separate unless it became more serious. So the boyfriend never slept over. Boyfriends never slept over, and she never took me with her on the dates. She wanted to keep that separate. But I felt really lonely, and at that age, it got to a point where I was contemplating suicide. So that's when that wounded inner child slivered off and disappeared into my subconscious. Okay. So the third one, I went to see, again, no monster or anything. She was about 10 years old, and she and I had, this 10 years old was a very, very intense, traumatic experience for me. I was living with my grandparents and my grandmother. Well, I'll give you a little backstory. I was into, yoga and meditation, going to ashrams and learning about the masters, yoga masters of the past, like Confucius and Yogananda and, Jesus and so on. And here I was living with my grandparents who were Baptists, and I was going to church with them. And so one day, I'm very curious, very spiritual person. So I asked my grandmother, how do you become a Christian? Because I was interested. I wanted to see what this was all about. So she called up the pastor. He came over and explained ego sits on the throne. And when you ask Jesus to come in, you replace the ego with Jesus. And hey, that sounds kind of familiar with, excuse me, with what I was being taught in the ashrams. So I said, okay, let's do this. So I got down on my knees and did the prayer, and then I was baptized, and then Grandma changed. This is so very weird. But Grandma changed. She was no longer nice. She was she'd be turned into an authoritarian, very strict, and she accused me. Now, I'm not the only one in the house. Okay, so there's Grandma, Grandpa, and my Uncle Jim, who was 17, their baby. That was their last child, and he was 17. So, and she accused me of leaving silverware out in the yard. Now, I would go outside and eat something, but I would sit on the step, and when I was done, I brought it back in and washed it and put it in the drainer. So I know I did not leave silverware out in the yard, but she accused me of it. And of course, Uncle Jim is her baby. He can do no wrong. And so she accused me of lying and slapped me across the face. Now, you have to understand, my mother did not believe in spanking me. So, and I was always, honestly, you can ask her and she'll tell you, I was always very cooperative. There were a few times where we were at the playground and I didn't want to leave, and I was like, I don't want to go. And my mom and my aunt would walk away and said, hey, you come or you stay, it's up to you. And so I realized they're leaving me, I better get going. But I was very cooperative, and because my mother treated me with a lot of respect, and she treated me like an intelligent young child, but she respected me as an intelligent person that she can communicate and reason with. So she never spanked me. So my grandmother slaps me across the face, which is a betrayal of trust. No longer can I trust my grandmother to protect me and keep me safe. She is slapping me across the face. That happened twice. And then another time she accused me of lying. She put a bar of soap in my mouth. Okay, so there's a betrayal of trust, and there's me questioning my own mental stability. Am I remembering this right? Am I in my sleep? Am I sleepwalking and throwing these utensils out in the yard? What is going on here? I don't understand this. So that's when the 10-year-old wounded inner child slivered off and went into my subconscious, definitely. So I'm communicating with her, and she does reincorporate, I guess, return to me. And her only request, and this is kind of strange, but to make iced tea like grandma, only without so much sugar. So grandma would make iced tea, but there's so much sugar that you could almost, the teaspoon would almost stand up. It was so thick, it was almost syrup. But it was something that I enjoyed, and I never had growing up in LA. I had never had iced tea like that. So, but anyway, I don't always understand it, but I agreed I would do that. And she came back to me. So I found this all very interesting when I realized the age of the child and what was happening in my life when I was that age. And it really corresponds with traumatic experiences. And that's where I stopped, because the next step I know is with not my grandparents, but with my foster parents. And there is so much trauma and a lot of stuff there that I'm just kind of giving myself a break, and I'm working on these wounded inner children that came back to me, and fulfilling the promises that I made to them. Also, another observation that I realized was that it was starting at age 6, which is usually the age of reason, when we start reasoning for ourselves. That the wounded inner children before 6 didn't show up. So I'm going to explore that, why that is, if I need to approach those wounded inner children a little different, because I can't believe that nothing happened. Because I know a couple of things that happened, some accidents, like my aunt was taking me off the toilet, and she burned my hand. So I know that was a traumatic experience, and I want to explore why none of them showed up, that it started at 6 years old. So I find that very, very interesting. And I have a feeling there's a connection to those foundational toxic beliefs that I have, and they were formed there. And then my experiences later in life build on those foundational experiences and beliefs that I created. So I want to definitely explore why they didn't show up and what I need to do to reach them so that I can heal them as well. Okay, so that's it. It's about 8:30, and that's all I have for now. I hope this helps you to explore your own wounded inner children. I think it's very beneficial to do this, and I think everyone should explore it and see what they can do to heal that relationship. And if they don't want to reincorporate with you right at that time, send them off to the playground where they have other children they can play with, and they can feel safe there. Okay. Okay, so that's it for now. I'm going to continue working on this, and I can talk about whatever else, or maybe something else will come up. I don't know. So I will let you know in the group. And the Facebook group is Shadow Magic Witches, if you want to check it out. And if you want to join, you can join us. Okay, so I'm going to let you go for now. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And I will talk to you next week. Blessed be.